You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 145. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how life with less alcohol is more fun than you think. I work with high achievers who struggle to drink a glass of wine without it turning into 2 bottles. I'm the one they call when they want to take it or leave it. So if you want to change your relationship with alcohol that doesn't involve counting days sober, you're in the right place. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Now, I love it when I hear from my listeners. Yes, a number of you write into me. And by the way, it is an easy thing to do if you're thinking, I don't know how to do that. You just have to email anna@90dayslater.co. In any case, I received a question from a listener as follows. Hi, Anna. Love the podcast. In spite of creating a plan and tracking my cravings, I find I'm wobbling and not following through. And she goes on to explain how she drinks in an unplanned manner or more than she wants and so on. And then she continues, I feel shame, I get no sleep. Unless I have a few days of a clean slate, I don't do it. Now, firstly, thank you to you know who you are, who wrote in for me. And I just know this is something that many of us feel, right? I remember it so clearly, this idea that we're just not following through. So I thought it just would be a great topic to address directly on the podcast. So as I said, the listener who wrote to me, she will remain anonymous per her request, but you know who you are. So this episode is for you with love. And the best thing is we all get to learn. All right. So again, today we're talking about not following through. Another way of looking at this is talking about wobbles, right? When we've got the best of intentions, but then, we don't do what we say we're going to do. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that this is an area where you can get really caught up very easily when you're a highly functioning high achiever, right? It's kind of like our Achilles heel. We're a very determined lot and we're very capable and we're used to doing hard things. And we know that for a lot of stuff, we're totally capable of that. And we also know that for a lot of stuff that we do in life, it all begins with a decision. In fact, we just need to decide. I find that so often, right, in my life in other areas, especially when it's things that I don't really feel like doing. You just got to decide, Anna. And I know when I've decided, right, that's most of the work done right there. It's a really powerful place, right? You might be familiar with this. So what happens is we decide to do something about our drinking, right? We make that decision, which, by the way, is something in and of itself to celebrate. I just want to riff on this for a little bit. I do a free initial discovery call with people interested in working with me. It's absolutely no strings attached call, right? I only want to work with people where it's a good fit or they really want to work with me. But so many people, they decide to say yes to themselves on the call, right? Even if they might think, I might have to think about this, they actually decide just to go ahead and they say, yeah, I'm going to coach with you, Anna. Even though it's not an easy decision, and even though they have concerns about whether it'll work for them, and even though they're worried about paying for this, right? They work through all that and they say yes. And I'm going to tell you, the feeling that comes in its wake is relief. Total relief. You're backing yourself. So making the decision is powerful, especially when you're making a decision to coach, because what you're saying is you're saying yes to help, yes to yourself, and you're saying yes to I'm not going to suffer alone anymore, right? So making a decision is absolutely a powerful thing, but that is a dramatic pause there. But we can then quickly jump after we have made this decision as high achievers. We can then jump into this kind of crazy expectation that we should be able to make the change really quickly, that we should be on solid ground really fast, right? I've decided I'm going to do something about my drinking, so why can't I just drink 1 glass and be done already, right? I've decided. I'm invested in myself. The other way of looking at this is you might think, well, I've been drinking for 30 years, but I should just be able to manage this in 5 minutes, right? Or something's gone wrong. And how this also shows up is we want to know how long it takes other people to transform their relationship with alcohol. We want to know, are we doing it right? I mean, all those things. Listen, if that's you, I'm talking to you. If you find yourself wobbling, you are human. I genuinely mean nothing has gone wrong. But if this is how you're thinking about it, or if you're thinking, I should just be able to do this right now, or if you're thinking, why on earth can't I just follow through? I've decided already. It's probably feeling pretty crummy. If that's you, I want you to get factual. Ask yourself things like, how many cravings have you fully allowed and fully embraced? If you don't know what I'm talking about with embracing and allowing cravings, go back and listen to episodes 22 and 49. That's the first thing to ask yourself. Then you can ask yourself things like, have you been writing down how the cravings feel? Have you been doing this on repeat day after day? Have you been looking at your thoughts? Have you been really evaluating how you're getting on? Right? Because when you have 100 cravings, when you've had 100 cravings that have come and you've let them go and you haven't drank to them, you will be a completely different person. Completely different. So gather the facts. You can't learn to ride a bike unless you actually get on the bike and give it a go. You can't learn to ride it if you buy it, do a few lessons, wobble a bit, and then just put it in the garage. You sort of look at it from time to time. Think about, I need to go and do that, right? We do that with alcohol. We've got to put in the work. Got to get out there, feel the cravings. And really, the more you go towards cravings, the easier it becomes. I know it seems like the complete reverse to what you'd expect, but it's true. I have to say also that so many people tell me that when they do that, when they actually decide they're going to, go towards the cravings, it's actually not that bad. I hear that a lot. It's actually not that bad. It's like we're shocked. They weren't too hard. It was all right, actually. It was okay. And then what happens is people often then use that against themselves. They think it's too easy. And that means they're not doing it right. They're not working hard enough. But really, sometimes it is easy. So if you aren't following through on your decision and on, allowing cravings, embracing cravings, get factual about what you've been doing and for how long. Right? There needs to be some repetition in here. That's the first thing to do. And now I just want to spend some time actually talking about cravings, because they are the thing between you and your future life. And there's something that's going on with cravings. If you're not following through, there's something happening there, right? That you're not addressing. So let's first talk about why it really matters to pay attention to this stuff. Managing cravings is where you direct and change your desire. Is where desire lives. Talk a lot about changing your relationship with alcohol by reducing your desire, right? That's how it becomes a very normal part of your life where you won't be fighting yourself. So looking at cravings is really significant. So think about it. There's a moment when a craving happens and you're going to want to have an intentional answer to it. Because right now you already have an answer to the craving. Right? Is to drink. It is a quick, polished behavior. We think, a drink would be nice. In fact, you might not even be aware you're thinking that, but there is some level of wanting a drink and then the drink's in your hand. But before that feeling of the craving happens, there's a thought. That's what I was saying just now. A drink would be nice. And that precedes the feeling. At first, it's going to be an unconscious thought. You might not even be aware it's there, but it is there. It is lurking and it is there and it is polished and it is quick and it is something you have been teaching yourself to pay huge attention to. And it is that unconscious thought, or like you'll have loads of them, those are unconscious thoughts that create the emotion and the desire and that are fueling the craving to have a drink. Now you're going to have to prepare yourself for this, right? Just prepare yourself. Because otherwise you're going to be drinking before you even notice. You're going to feel like it's out of your control. So preparing is going to get you out of the situation I see sometimes when people say, well, I decided I wasn't going to drink, but then look at me. I mean, I'm still doing it and I did it last night and I decided, right? So I want you to prepare for the moment. What will you think? What will you feel? And what will you do at that time when the craving comes? Now, when it comes to not following through on cravings, you actually have a huge power, an untapped power that you're likely not using. And that is the ability to learn from yourself. And yes, this works for you even if you haven't done evaluations before, right? You probably know, you've tried a lot of stuff, I'm guessing. I mean, most people when they come to me, they've tried a laundry list of things. So you know what doesn't work, right? So you can now discount those things and stop doing those things, right? So that's knowledge. Now listen, changing your relationship with alcohol, we use those words, right? I'm changing this relationship. And we use those words a lot, but I want you to think about what that really means. What we're talking about is the relationship between you and the wine, or you and the beer, or you and the gin, or whatever. It's different for everyone, just like every one of your relationships, right? I used to love French Chablis, but the way I thought about it and how I acted around it was personal to me. I had other friends who loved their white wine, but they would be different. They would act and interact and think differently. So it's a personal thing, just like all of our relationships, right? It's just a personal thing. And the great thing is you hold all the cards, all of them, and you can see what they all are, right? There's no bluffing here. You know your patterns. And with practice, you can get access to your thoughts. You know your beliefs. You know the circumstances you deal with. You know it all, right? You just might not even be consciously aware of it, but with a little bit of effort, you can get that down on paper. So I want you to think about that. If, for instance, if you thought about it carefully and you could think ahead of time. So, for instance, let's say you have a pattern of desire from 5 to 7, and that's programmed into your brain because that's how you unwind. You unwind with wine. Right. So many people say, if I can get past after dinner or get past 7, I'll be okay. For me, it used to be 8. If I can get past 8 o'clock without drinking, I'll be fine. Right. So in that scenario, and this works for all scenarios, let's just take that one as an example. You have to anticipate there is going to be significant desire during that time between 5 and 7, let's say, in our example here. You've got to expect there's going to be significant desire building up to 5 as well. Maybe it starts at 4:30, maybe it starts at 3. It's going to be different for everyone. But the good news is you can anticipate that because you can plan and prepare for it. You know you're going to come home from work. You know you're going to have thoughts about having a drink. They're going to be starting in your brain, maybe even as you're driving home. You know you're going to be thinking things like, well, just this once, not a big deal. I'm not an alcoholic. It's just a glass of wine. What harm will one do? It's not fair. Everyone else is having one. Why can't I? Who cares what I decided this morning? I mean, all of it, right? And you can have an answer to all of those thoughts. Yes, all of them. You're probably rolling your eyes and thinking, ugh, more homework. But really, this does sound very tedious, I will admit. But that is the point. Your brain does not want you to spend all that precious energy on effort on something that's so tedious and so unnecessary, it's going to tell you. It just wants to keep you doing what you're doing. Because, hey, remember, you love to drink. You drink between 5 and 7. It's what we do. All right, so listen, your brain is just telling you what it's always told you. All right, these repeated thoughts it's telling you. And if you do not have a pre-prepared answer, you are not going to be operating from a position of strength. But if you do think ahead, you're ready for this. You're ready for these thoughts, and you can just be willing to try it out. In fact, just try one thing out. One thing, if there's something around not following through that you think, gosh, that just keeps coming up all the time, think of an alternative response and then just try it out and learn from that. And one final thing I want to talk about here is that overwhelm, I find, is closely connected with the idea of not following through, or overwhelm. That feeling becomes something that sort of becomes a reason or an excuse. I think I did an episode on reasons and excuses a couple of weeks ago. But overwhelm can be a reason for us not following through. And if I refer back to my listener's email that she sent me when she spoke about not being able to follow through unless, and I quote, I have a few days of a clean slate, I don't do it. Oof. That is a pretty heavy thought, right? Got to get this perfect for a few days, got to have a clean slate, or I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm exaggerating a little there, but you get my drift, right? When you've got to be perfect, how does that feel? Now, for me, it is for sure overwhelmed. And that is going to put the brakes right back on. So I want you to imagine, this is really what's happening. I want you to imagine the choice in the moment, right? Whenever it is, 5 o'clock for you, whenever your drinking time normally is. You have the choice in the moment between making the brain effort to manage your mind and feel the cravings, which we'll talk about all the time on the podcast, and that takes a lot of effort, you might think, especially as you're feeling overwhelmed and you aren't able to do this and you haven't been able to do it before, and I probably won't be able to do it perfectly, right? So that's choice 1. And choice 2 is to drink a glass of wine and watch Netflix. This is a hard sell, people. This idea of there's an effort on one side of the equation versus a glass of wine in the moment. You cannot blame yourself because in that moment, the brain wants the easiest, most efficient way to reward itself. And while we always have a choice in the moment, we always have radical responsibility. I love that expression, radical responsibility. We always have choice in the moment. The momentum towards the drink is going to be so strong, it's going to feel often as though we don't have a choice. But humans can make that decision ahead of time. This is how we exercise our strength to choose what we want for ourselves. And by doing it ahead of time, we are choosing the best for ourselves, not just what we absolutely feel like in the moment. And this comes down to why we're doing this, right? Because it's going to be hard at times. And we don't follow through when it gets hard because we've forgotten why we're doing this. So I want you to decide the reason why you want to work on your mind rather than have the drink, right? Why you want to take the more difficult path rather than the easy one. Why do you want to drink less, right? Just really think about it. You don't have to tell anyone. For instance, you might think it's because I'm not thriving right now, right? Something I used to think about. My life wasn't terrible by any stretch, but I wish I wasn't thriving. I really wasn't. Therefore, when your brain is telling you, go on, it's just a glass of wine, it's okay, your answer is that no, it isn't okay because I'm not thriving right now. And the best way for me to do that is to learn how to allow the desire to be there and not drink. Right? That's the kind of thing I want you to think about. Have that reason prepared ahead of time. Have an oven-ready response. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Now, I want to make sure you have your hands on my free guide about how to curb the alcohol cravings when they come. You can get that from 90dayslater.co/3 things, or one word, 3 things. And if you want to change, you're listening to me. You've maybe been listening to me for weeks. I see you, right? But maybe you just don't think you can do this. You're not even sure you can do this with me. I want to encourage you to book that free call with me. Like I say, I work one-on-one with people. I offer a judgment-free, shame-free space to explore why you drink and help you create a new relationship with alcohol that is right for you. Everything is crafted around you. It is totally no strings attached, but if you have that little inkling that this is what you need, if you know this is going to propel you into the life that you've always wanted, then go ahead, take the courageous step and book that call with me. You can do this on the front page of my website, 90dayslater.co, or you can always just email me at anna@90dayslater.co. And otherwise, I will see you all next week. Bye. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first glass of wine the moment 6 p.m. rolls around and they don't miss out on life. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.